Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 22. The door to everything.
I, a man who had formerly been feared among a crew of ferocious sailors, and now been nothing but a mere man that feared, stranded somewhere in the terror of the endless blue. Despite my conditions, my mind had been on other things I feared to even ponder. From below, a shadow had risen from the horrific, dark depths of the ocean and pulled men one by one to their demise. My once infamous crew had been no more but men who'd now rest eternally below. God, how I feared for my life in those few moments which, strangely, was spared. That mattered not, as I was certain one of those creatures could come and get me whenever. I knew they watched me. A man who had nothing but a quill, a half-empty jar of ink, a diary, and a plank of wood from the remains of the shit to hold on to for dear life. No matter what, I did not want them to take me like they did my crewmates. To them I was nothing more than their plaything as they watched my struggle. All a man like me could ever do is write, hope, and pray for the sea's mercy. Hours passed, perhaps days. Time was insignificant, as it had been yet another day without an island in sight. The horrors from before still lingered in my mind. The memory of me floating away as a shadowy figure that had only been separated by the dismantled ship it towered over stood before me. It looked into my eyes as I looked back, getting farther and farther from the screams and futile cannon fire of my ship. It pointed at me. Its unsettling yet calming voice directed at me spoke.
You will see me again. Do not forget. You are fated for so much more.
What did it mean? Who was that creature that only a mystery such as the sea could spawn? Maybe I'm fated to live, or perhaps they saved me from something? All these false, nonsensical ideas and a forced attempt at hope, yet all that ran through me was the feeling of a fate much worse than death. Would hope be nothing but a fool's ignorance now? Maybe such ignorance will give me a reason to push on. Maybe ignorance is even wise. An island. My chances of survival have increased a bit, although there does not seem to be a soul on the island before me. I ventured forward as the ocean waves carried me toward the island, rocking the plank of wood calm and gently, as if a baby in its mother's arms. It was almost inhuman, as if the sea decided, finally, to show mercy on me. Something else was strange, like something gave me the drive to push on, as if whatever had been on that island had been waiting for me. Waiting for a long time. The forest that the island held in particular had been calling to me, as the island, which had never been so far away, had become bigger as my arrival came closer. Asleep, I'd been awoken by the waves of the crashing tides, in which I felt a feeling that a man stranded at sea would miss dearly. I wiped the stuck grains of sand from my risen head in an attempt to compose myself. On the island already, I thought. The distance I had been, no man would have been able to reach this island within just a few days. It's not possible with the situation I was in. It only strengthened my calling towards this island. My soul, it felt connected to everything in sight, despite the weak body that I carried. Despite my condition, I carried on through the island towards the forest that would only lead deeper into the island. The feeling that I'd been stepping on sacred grounds overcame me, but at the same time I felt among those sacred ones, as if a part of their bigger plan, a piece of the puzzle. My feet, they felt as if they were no longer a part of my body as I stepped through all the stones, twigs and thorns of the forest, peeling through my skin and causing pain, yet I felt something worse was to come, something much worse. It had been dark, caused by the looming shadows of the storm clouds above me, as if something truly great was about to happen. The only thing that pulled me forward was the strange, faint blue light in the distance, blocked by trees and vines, beckoning me, whispering to me indecipherable words. At last I found the source, a strange old broken temple located in the middle of nowhere with blue fires that instructed you to come forward as if preparing a sort of grand entrance for me. Even though the temple had been old, the stone grounds felt smooth, yet not quite perfect, due to the twigs and pebbles that pierced my skin. Nevertheless, I carried on and came face to face with the unthinkable. Other humans. They all had on strange clothing and masks that covered their true faces. They all had been on all fours, bowing, all in a straight line on both sides that pointed towards the end of a long hall. Speaking to them came to mind, but these sacred grounds, they spoke to me, telling me that human interaction had been forbidden in this temple. They told me to move forward and everything would make sense. I believed them. Desperate, weak, and having no place to go and no family to return to. At the end, there was a tall, white door that felt out of place with the rest of the room, but within a second, it made sense. The door was the source of it all, and I understood what they wanted me to do. I stepped forward, ever so slow, towards the large door in order to get the answers I wanted. face to face with the door, I placed my hand onto it. It complied with my wishes immediately. As its bright, blinding light filled the entire room, my eyes focused onto the light, the feeling of it burning my skin causing me to scream in pain that I'd never felt before in any of my years as a sailor. Days became weeks, months became years. Nothing became everything. But none of that mattered. Not anymore. It's only the start of it all. It all makes sense now. Yet at the same time it doesn't. Such drivel only a madman could understand, but it all just made perfect sense. All of it, it's just too much to take in, yet I understand why they chose me. When I faced the creature, I felt not fear, but terror. I knew what they all wanted from me. The bottom will rise to the top, and time will become insignificant. I was their messiah. The answer to everything was within me, and it was something worse than death. The unspeakable horrors they showed me would stick with me forever, and only me. Forever, it would only be me alone to comprehend the true insanity of God itself. The horror and insanity of the depths of the vast, endless blue is only but a small fraction of the terror that lurks, and those who live blissfully in ignorance of it all are perhaps the smartest.
This has been tape number 22, The Door to Everything, by the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. The Door to Everything was written by an anonymous author and was originally posted on the Creepypasta Wiki. Guest narration for this episode was done by the very talented Dr. Torment. Check out his narration content on YouTube. A link can be found in the show notes. Music for this episode was provided by CO.AG, with a link to their YouTube in the show notes. Production and sound design for this episode was by TJ Hodder. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, overlays, and graphic design work was provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you have a story you would like to submit, or a question regarding the show, please contact us at tapesdepredationpodcast@gmail.com. Support the show by subscribing and leaving a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcatcher. Or leave us a like on YouTube. Be sure to tell your friends. Word of mouth is extremely helpful to a new podcast like this one. Check us out on social media through the link tree in the show notes. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. And if you'd like to support the show a little more, consider joining the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain access to monthly bonus short story narrations, the weekly behind-the-scenes podcast within the archive, and more. And if you join at the $20 or above tiers, you'll also gain access to monthly live readings and another really fun reward only for the highest tiered patrons. So that sounds like fun. Come check out the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon. Join us and become trapped within the archive, just like my current patrons. Kelly Sisson, Neil Skarupa of Neurotic Voice, Doozer Pindan, Ronan Komori, Eric Phones, and Patrick Stewart. Thank you all so much for the support. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, used with permission, or is available on your Creative Commons share-alike license. All rights reserved, unless otherwise stated. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcasted without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Thank you so much for listening.